Hey, this is Dan with GRPWEGMAN. On a really cold day outside when your furnace quits working, I'm looking to give you some tips of things that you can check on your own before you call for professional service. The first thing when your furnace quits working that you're going to want to look at is the thermostat. You would not believe the number of service calls that we actually get sent to where there's absolutely nothing wrong other than the thermostat is not turned on. This is a digital thermostat. Most houses and stuff today have it, but there's lots of varieties of thermostats, so we're making some assumption. On a digital thermostat, the first thing to look at is the display. If the display is totally blank, which can happen, then there's a good chance that the batteries are dead or that you got a power problem down at the furnace. So the first thing we want to look at is, do I have a display? The next thing at the thermostat is you got a couple of settings. There's a mode switch or a heat cool switch. Every thermostat has got something on it that's going to say heat, cool, and off. And you want to make sure that when you're trying to get heat, that it's set to heat. You also have a temperature setting, and you've got to make sure that the temperature setting is set higher than the temperature of the room or the house that you're trying to heat, so that there's a call. And then on every digital thermostat, there's a visual indicator on the display that'll tell you if the thermostat is actually asking for heat. On this particular one, right now, it's not calling. So if I would turn this up to 72, you'll see right here on the display that there's a little change that says, and now it says heating. On yours, it could be a flame that shows up indicating that the burner flame is lit. It could be just the word heat, and then some of them have nothing more than a LED light that lights when there's a call for heat. Check that and make sure that it's calling for heat. If it's not, the things to do is to remove the thermostat from the wall, put fresh batteries in it. It could be AA's, could be AAA's. When you pull it off, it'll become apparent to you. And if you've checked everything at the thermostat and you still don't have a call for heat, the next step is to go down to the furnace. After checking the thermostat, the next thing to do is to come down by the furnace itself. You want to use your eyes and ears and stuff and listen to it and let it tell you what's going on and maybe give you a clue in what direction you go. Standing next to this one, I hear absolutely nothing. The blower's not on, there's no noise coming from inside, so everything indicates that this thing is not on and running. On the front of every modern day furnace, just like everything else in today's world, there's a printed circuit board inside a furnace. And on the front of every modern day furnace, you should see a little LED light viewing port. If you look at that close, and we'll do that in a minute, we'll give you, inside there is an LED light that's flashing. And that flashing is a clue as to what the furnace is being asked to do or what problem it's encountered that's keeping it from doing what you want it to do to heat your house. So before you do anything with the furnace, listen to it, look at it, but get down with your eyes straight in line with that and then look and observe that LED light. If the furnace is normal, you're going to get what they call a heartbeat pulse, to where the light goes light and it dims, bright, dim, about the pace of what your heart beats. A heartbeat means that everything in there is totally normal. If you look at it and it's flashing to where it's going bright on, totally off, then watch it. It should be in a sequence. Recording that and making sure that you know what it is before you do anything else down here could be that the total clue is what you need to be able to fix this thing on your own. Once you've determined that that light is lit and watched it and recorded what the flashes are, you're ready to move to the next step. But if you come down here and that light's dark, you got a power problem. So let's kind of address that. Two things that can interrupt power to this furnace. One is what's called the service switch. For this to be safe for me to work on, code requires that there be a switch immediately located next to the furnace. Most of the time, you will find it right on the side of the furnace. Sometimes if you follow that pipe, you'll find it mounted high above the furnace where that pipe originates. But somewhere on the furnace, you should see a switch. Obviously, you want to make sure that switch is on. If it's off and you turn it on, check your light again. If the light is now lit, then you just solved your problem. You turned on the furnace because somebody inadvertently turned the switch off. If the switch is on and the light is still dark, we got one more place to check, and that would be the circuit breaker panel. Somewhere in your house, usually in the basement, and if not in the basement, in the garage, you should find a circuit breaker panel that looks much like this one. If your furnace has no power, your thermostat display is totally blank, you've checked the switches and stuff at the furnace, you can't get that flashing light to light, then this is where you want to head. Something that a lot of people don't realize is there's two switches for most home heating air conditioning systems. One is for the air conditioner, which is the outside portion, and then one is for the furnace. Two separate switches. And in the heating mode, the furnace is the one that we're most worried about. Hopefully your panel is well labeled like this one is, and you'll find a breaker that says furnace. Once you find it, breakers can actually trip without moving position. So the thing to do when you come down here, if you're chasing a power problem, is to flip that guy all the way to the off position, push it hard to reset it, and then turn it back on. You may also find it tripped, and if it's tripped, it will be in the center position. Now, a trip breaker a lot of times indicates a problem. So if you find a trip breaker and you reset it once and once only. If it trips a second time, call professional help. It means there's something seriously wrong with the electrical system in your house. The last thing you want to do is keep turning that on and off because you're creating what is a potential fire hazard. Don't do that. If you find your panel to be totally unlabeled, look for that breaker that's in the middle position. And if you find it, reset it. If you can't find any in the middle position and you think that that's the problem, you could go through and systematically turn every one of them off and turn every one of them back on. And if it was tripped, you should find it and reset it that way. The only problem with that is you're going to have to reset that clock on your microwave. After we've determined that we've got power to the furnace, we should either have a heartbeat inside that LED light or we should have a flashing code. And we should have recorded that code. If you find the heartbeat flashing, you've checked the thermostat, you've checked the power, you've got the heartbeat, and this furnace isn't doing anything even though the thermostat tells you it's calling for heat, you've probably exhausted your options. If you get down here and the thermostat's calling for heat and you've got a code flashing, now we've got to figure out how to decipher what that code's telling you before you know what the next step is. To do that, we have to find the chart inside the furnace that tells you what the codes mean. After doing that, we're going to want to remove the two cover plates that's on the furnace. Most of them just either slide up and off. This one just happens to have quarter turn quick releasers on it. Once you pull the covers off, you should find some information from the manufacturer on the inside of both of these doors. One of them probably has lighting and operating instructions. The other one has got a little pamphlet or whatever it could that's there, and in that pamphlet you should find a chart that tells you what the flashing codes mean. The two things that are within your capability to do something with them is one would be high limit trip and the other one would be blocked flue or low flue circulation, failure to make the flue switch, something of those natures. Let's start with the high limit trip. The number one cause of a furnace to trip a high limit is poor maintenance on the homeowner's part, which means the filter is dirty. The second indication of something that you can check on a furnace is a blocked flue or low flue airflow. And what that usually means is that during the summer or an off period, some uninvited creature, like a bird, has decided to build a nest inside the combustion air or the flue path air for this furnace. If you've got a high limit trip, it could be nothing more than the filter's dirty. On most furnaces, just where the duct attaches to the bottom of the furnace, you should find a slot or some type of a removable panel, and there should be a filter in it. This particular one has got a filter that I can just slide out and look at. You want to check this filter, and if it's horribly dirty and clogged, replace it and then recheck and restart the furnace and see if it comes on a run. Again, a high limit trip could be an indication of a failure inside this furnace. So if you have a high limit trip, you change the filter and you put it all together and you think you got good airflow and stuff and it trips again, call for professional service. But if the filter's dirty and you change it and the problem goes away, congratulations, you just fixed it. And we're hiring you. Want a job? If you got the clogged flue indication from your lights, if it told you you've got a flue problem, chances are that you've got one or two types of flues on your furnace. So if you look at your furnace and you got plastic pipes, these will go up and leave your house with no interruption whatsoever. So the only place you can check for a problem is going to be outside. The other thing that you could find on your furnace would be the older style furnaces that are only 80% efficient. They may have a metal flue pipe. And this metal flue pipe is coming actually from my water heater, but this flue pipe would be the same exact style pipe that you would see coming off of a furnace if you had 80%. And from it, you'll see that it comes over, and there's always a T that turns and it'll head. This flue always goes out to the roof of the house. So this will run through the house and terminates outside. That flue there could either go out the roof or it could go out the side. This particular one, the first thing that you're going to do to check this is there's a cap down here on the bottom. And if you pull off this cap and look up, you should see daylight. If you do not see daylight, then you got a flue problem clogged somewhere between here and the roof, and it's probably time to call a professional unless you're brave enough to get on your roof, pull the top cap, and try and determine what clogged it. The goal today was to help you fix that furnace on your own. Hopefully we've accomplished that, but if we haven't, give us a call. We'll be happy to send somebody out to take care of the problem for you.